Burma today, and as you know, we'll be offering a backgrounder on the Burma situation with a senior State Department official right after we finish here. A couple of other housekeeping things. Arshad has been asking for days, if not weeks, about secretarial communication with President Abbas and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Prior to this week, the Secretary had spoken to President Abbas on November 10th, to Prime Minister Netanyahu on November 21st. As you know, the President spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. Unbeknownst to your humble servant here, the Secretary spoke to President Abbas on Wednesday. So just to complete your records on that at your request. And then I have a brief little announcement on secretarial travel. Secretary Clinton will travel to Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and Cape Verde January 16, 17. Yes, we are going to do all those countries in 2.5 days to demonstrate U.S. commitment to post-conflict return to peace, good governance, economic development, as well as to emphasize the U.S. focus on democratization. While in Liberia, Secretary Clinton will attend President Sirleaf's inauguration and preside over the ribbon cutting of our new embassy compound in Monrovia. In Cote d'Ivoire, she'll meet with President Ouattara to showcase our support for national reconciliation and strengthening democratic institutions following the successful legislative elections in December. In the first visit of a Secretary of State to Togo, Secretary will meet with President Faure to demonstrate U.S. support for Togo's democratic progress and economic reforms, and to congratulate Togo on its recent election to the UN Security Council, where it holds a non-permanent seat for 2012-2013. In Cape Verde, Secretary Clinton will meet with Prime Minister Neves to discuss cooperation on regional issues like counter-narcotics, good governance, sound economic policies, and Cape Verde's second Millennial Challenge Corporation Compact. Let's go to what's on your minds.
Thank you for getting the dates. I'm not going to ask about Burma since we had the background briefing, but we have a story that I think may have been drawn to your attention about a Russian-operated ship that has landed in Syria, and that, according to our sources, has 4 containers of bullets on it. Is this, what's your view on this? Do you think that Russia should be, or Russian companies should be, supplying arms to the Syrian government now?
Well, as you know, we've called many times. The Secretary has called, the White House has called, and we've called from this podium for all countries that continue to trade and supply weapons with Syria to stop. With regard to the ship, we have raised our concerns about this, both with Russia and with Cyprus, which was the last port of call for the ship. And we are continuing to seek clarification as to what went down here.
And do you raised the concerns with Russia in Moscow or in Washington?
In Moscow. This was done earlier today, and the concerns were raised with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which obviously is not the controlling ministry, so they need to do a little research there and get back to us, but we're anticipating that they will get back to us.
And I think our reporting is based primarily, not entirely, but primarily on unnamed sources. Do you have confirmation that the ship was indeed carrying munitions?
We've obviously not seen the cargo of the ship. We have some information from the press, as you do. We also have some information from our contacts with the government of Cyprus. But I'm not in a position to, really say definitively what was aboard.
Is the government of Cyprus told you that it was indeed arms?
We've seen the same, public announcements that you've seen. I think the Embassy of Cyprus put out something from here a couple of days ago with its characterization of what was on the ship. Please.
Syria remains within its right to import ammunition and arms and so on from Russia, correct?
Well, as you know, in the context of our conversation about a UN Security Council resolution, among the things that we might be seeking would be stronger efforts to control this kind of thing into Syria, because obviously we all have concerns that the Syrian regime is using it against its own people.
Right, but until such a resolution is passed, they are within their right.
They're not currently under any UN Security Council restrictions of that kind. Obviously, many individual countries, the United States included, have taken unilateral steps to bar weaponry into Syria.
Can you address just simply why you feel that this is not a good idea now? Does it simply add fuel to the fire?
The concern is that the Syrian regime is getting weapons from wherever it can to use against its own people. Please.
Iran?
Yeah.
There's a story in the New York Times today about a so-called secret diplomatic channel being used to get the message across from the United States concerning the Strait of Hormuz. What can you tell us? Obviously, secret is secret, but is it correct that the United States had to go to extraordinary lengths to try to get that message across?
No. First of all, let me just say that my colleague Jay Carney at the White House spoke to this issue extensively earlier today. First of all, with regard to the Straits of Hormuz, the Secretary has been very clear, the President's been very clear. From every public platform, we've been very clear that the United States considers this an international waterway. We and our partners are committed to keeping it open. It's part of an international lifeline that keeps oil and gas moving around the world. And we will continue to speak as clearly as possible, publicly and through our various channels to the government of Iran about this. We have a number of ways that we have historically conveyed our views to the Iranian government. We've used those mechanisms regularly on a range of issues over the years, and we have done so again in this case.
So just to be correct about it, you're saying that nothing new was used, no back channel that hadn't existed before was used. You're using pre-existing back channels or other ways of communicating?
I think you characterized it correctly.
Okay. And why would you need to do that at this particular point? I mean, I guess the question would be, some people have said, some officials have said that there's a chance that Iran could miscalculate, that they won't get the message, even if it's out there in public. Is that necessary, that you have to really strengthen it behind the scenes?
Well, we had some very strong public statements, as you know, a few days ago, a week ago, I don't remember. So it was important to make our views known. We were not the only country to make our views known. Many European countries, many countries in the region also expressed strong concerns about this. So we do it publicly. We do it through our regular channels to the government of Iran, and we've been very clear.
But at this point, is there such a high level of concern, I guess, that you had to go to extraordinary lengths?
I've already spoken to your assertion that there were extraordinary measures here. Please.
China is one of the major oil buyers from Iran. On Iran. So, yeah.
Sorry, go.
So what are you talking with the Chinese, because they are one of the major buyers of Iranian oil, and that's what the Iranians are also thinking, that China will be or is helping them in many ways, including arms and other things. What are the views from China as far as helping Iran?
First of all,
just go to China to discuss this.
First of all, welcome back, Goyle. As we've been saying over the last week here, we are talking to countries around the world about the new legislation that the president signed into law, and our effort to encourage countries to reduce their dependence on Iranian crude oil. This includes conversations with Beijing, and as Arshad has pointed out, it included conversations when Secretary Geithner was in Beijing earlier this week.
And finally, as far as India is concerned, India was also had a good relation with the Iranian Iran and also, as far as oil is concerned, energy with the talks with Iran. Are you in touch with the Indian government or Indian Prime Minister, or has Secretary called anybody?
We are. We also spoke to this yesterday. We're in close contact with India working on the same issue. Catherine.
An update on Mr. Hekmati. Have the Swiss been able to see him? And did you raise this in the other channels that you mentioned previously?
With regard to Mr. Hekmati, the only update that I can report with regret is that the Swiss asked again today or yesterday of the Iranians to be able to see him on our behalf, and were again denied.
Can we go back to Jill's question, if you don't mind, about Iran? I just feel like I don't quite understand this. Your point is, you're not saying you didn't send a secret message to Iran. You're just saying you used an existing channel to do that, correct?
We used our regular channels of communication, of which there are several, to make our message known privately, in addition to the very strong messages we're sending publicly.
And was the message sent privately sent directly to the Supreme Leader, or?
I can't speak to that. I frankly don't have the answer to that.
And just that channel was not using the Swiss protecting power, which is what I thought was your normal channel.
We have, as I've said, we have that channel. We have a number of channels. I'm not going to get any further into the various channels that we use, except to say that we are not in doubt that the Iranians received our message through our diplomatic channels as well as through public channels.
But it was not through the Swiss channel then?
Well, obviously, all channels have been used. Please.
Wait, just on this other channel, that you were
Guys,
able to
I
extend.
really have nothing further on channels. I
just
have
want
nothing
you-
further on channels.
You said this is a regular channel that's not new, and I just want to know how often you use this particular channel.
I'm not going to get into the details of what we use, when we use it, or anything further. As we have said, as Jay said earlier, we have a number of ways to communicate our views to the Iranians. We've used these mechanisms regularly over time. We use them again in this case. Please.
And how are you sure that they received the message? You said you were quite sure that they.
Again, I don't have anything further on this issue.
Well,
Please.
still on Iran.
Yeah.
Media reports suggested that Iranians said thank you for rescuing Iranians from the. Did you get any thank you note directly or through your channels or through the Swiss?
Apart from being thanked profusely by the Iranians themselves who we rescued, both the sailors at sea and then the subsequent ones that we rescued with the Coast Guard, to my knowledge, we have not received an Iranian government thank you note, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Please.
When Secretary Geithner was in China, did he actually talk with Chinese officials about the sanctions you imposed yesterday?
I'm going to send you to the Treasury Department for anything further on his
And
consultations.
also, the company you imposed the sanction yesterday, they released statement and they said they have never export any gasolines to Iran. They are mainly import Iran's oil. Do you have any response?
You're talking about the sanctions that we put forward that on.
Zhuhai General.
Yeah, I other than to say that we feel we have a strong basis for the measures that were taken, I don't have anything further. Cami?
Has the Secretary spoken to either Prime Minister Galani or President Zardari in the past couple of days?
She has not.
Has the Ambassador Munter spoken to either of them in the last couple of days?
To my knowledge, he has not. I think he is out of the country at the moment. As you know, the Secretary had her bilateral call with Ambassador Rahman. I think it was either Wednesday or yesterday. Yeah, please. Yes, please.
What's the status of the NATO supply lines? Are they 100% blocked, or are some of them going through via Pakistan? And any indication of when that might come back online?
I don't think that the situation has changed. We're continuing to talk to the Pakistani government about these issues. You know what we know, that there are some internal discussions within Pakistan, and we are awaiting the conclusion of those so that we can continue
But are
consulting.
they 100% blocked? There was some news reports that some of them are going If yes, then what percentage?
I'm going to send you to the Pentagon and to ISAF on whether there's any change, but to my knowledge, there is not any change.
Can I just press this question
Yeah.
on Prime Minister Gilani? Did he make any calls, or has there been any outreach from him to anybody